Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast where we explore all things cinema. I want to welcome back to the show Kendall Cruver, who is a writer, and her website is called watchingclassicmovies.com, as well as her podcast. And she's got a YouTube channel, which I'll ask her about shortly. Kendall, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again.
Thank you, Robert. It's great to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you. I know last time we did Repeat Performance.
Yes.
The sci-fi noir.
Yes.
Film noir, which is a really, really good film. But yeah, just talk a little bit about, because I know when we last spoke, I know you had the podcast as well, Watching Classic Movies, but now you've been focusing on a YouTube channel, I believe.
Yes. At that time, I had done a couple of videos, but hadn't really put too much into it. And now I'm doing basically bi-weekly videos on my YouTube channel, just kind of compilations of clips put together to tell a story about a certain subject. I do have a Joan Crawford one in there, actually.
Fantastic. Well, and what is the channel called again? It's watching classic movies as well, right? Okay.
Yeah, probably the easiest way to find everything is watchingclassicmovies.com because it's all linked in there. But yeah, it's at Watching Classic Movies on YouTube.
Great, fantastic. Well, I'll leave the link in the description box where people can check out Kendall's work. For people who haven't seen Autumn Leaves, or if you haven't seen it in a while, I'll just read a brief synopsis. A lonely middle-aged woman meets a younger man, but their relationship is threatened after the man's troubled past reveals itself. This was directed by Robert Aldrich. It was written by, I hope I have Jean's last name pronounced correctly, Rouverol, and Hugo Butler. And it, of course, starred Joan Crawford, Cliff Robertson, and Vera Miles. Okay, so do you remember the first time you saw this film, Kendall, and what did you think when you first saw it?
It's really interesting because I saw it in connection with a bad movie book. It was this book.
Film. Wow.
Yes, it was based on a column in Movie Line, and it was called Bad Movies We Love.
I think I saw that about this, and I thought, why would this be on a bad movies list? But anyways.
Well, this book is funny. I love it, but because I found so many of my favorite movies in there that I unironically love, I don't really believe that I could love a movie that's bad. If it's entertaining me, it's good. Right. I get there are over the top moments in it and bits of dialogue that are a bit much. Yeah. But I could see why they put it in that category. But yeah, that was why I watched it. And as with many of the titles in that book, when I watched it, I said, no, this is good. I love this movie. Yeah. And that was a long time ago. And recently watching it and being closer to the age of Joan Crawford was an interesting experience. I got it more. Like even some of the lines I thought were maybe a little silly back then, I really don't know. I kind of just felt for her in this movie now.
Well, it's interesting because that I see what you mean, because this is probably the third time I've seen it, and it didn't pop out to me until this last viewing that some of the dialogue is maybe a little corny, but it never dawned on me before because I've always been so taken by it emotionally. And I mean, how you could put this on a bad movies list, I have no idea. Because I think it is a great film that's, criminally undervalued and overlooked, because everything it says about love and particularly mental health. I mean, it was really kind of way ahead of its time. There are some mental health, like what the doctor says about his symptoms. I'm not sure of that. I'm not an expert on mental health. I'm not sure if that would still be the case. Like he mentioned schizophrenia. I think we would look at that now as maybe he's experiencing PTSD.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not sure. You'd have to ask a doctor, I guess, or a mental health expert. But I think it's a wonderful film. And so for you, I mean, what are some of the takeaways? I mean, what do you think this film is exploring?
Well, I think it's interesting how independent she is. And that she really, in some respects, is fine being independent, being her own businesswoman. Yeah. I mean, working from home. Isn't that
remote
interesting
jobs
how
in the
different
50s.
that looks? Yeah, now.
Yeah.
But and the part of her that's vulnerable and wants to be in a relationship isn't subservient the way it typically was looked at in that area, you know?
True.
She's the one taking charge most of the time. Like, she's the one who sees to his care. She takes care of him, and she remains financially independent at the same time.
Yes.
It is in some respects a gender switch, though because it is a mental illness they're dealing with, it makes it a different area sort of. I guess it's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, that's the thing that really gets me, is how she really is a very strong person in this, despite loneliness. Like, that doesn't make you weak to be lonely. That just makes you human.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but just from after, I know you and I both interviewed Robert Dance and read his really, fantastic book, Ferocious Ambition, that this, at this point, and even in the 40s, I guess, starting with Mildred Pierce, these are the sort of I hate to say formula, but the kind of roles that Joan often played, where she was sort of, took charge of things, like everything that you just described. She was independent. People are often like trying to screw her over and wrong her, take advantage of her. But yet she's, like this character, she's intuitive, she's intelligent, she's strong, but at the same time, incredibly insecure and vulnerable. And maybe even to an extent naive, but I think it's because that's the thing, that's what I love that the film is saying about love in general, is that, you could fall so hard for someone. And I think they both really do. And then, of course, you find out about, these troubles that you didn't know about. And so what do? Do you walk away, or do you dive in and work on it and, grow together with it? So I thought the film actually did that, really well, because we see the honeymoon phase, and then then we get into, like, obviously his problems are severe. And then it's like, well, what do you do now? You love this person, and how do you just drop them because of these problems? I thought, I don't know how you felt just about how that was handled.
Well, I mean, a lot of people would walk away too, wouldn't they?
Right.
And I think emotionally she is a little immature, just because it seems that she hasn't had the relationships, as far as love goes.
Yes, that's true.
She doesn't understand a lot, and so it seems childish at first, and then she grows as she understands what she needs to do. And it isn't to hold on to this man at any cost. It's to take care of him because she loves him, and that's what matters. She finally finds her true north in a way, because before she's just withholding and not having anything to do with it. But now she's like, oh, this is how I dive in. This is what I do. It's like, I'm not 100% sure, but something is making me do this. And she finds out who she is as far as being a loyal person.
Yes.
I think she gets faith in herself by the end, because she realizes that loyalty, was rewarded. It was the right thing to do.
Right. And you also see in that flashback with her father that she's clearly is used to being like a caretaker. And so she has those qualities. And then it's so interesting, because even her father was saying, go out, these men are asking you out, and you should have a life. And she says, no, lots of time, right? Lots of time. And then, of course, before you know it, she feels like time's run out. But, I think the film shows, like, there's no such thing as, time running out.
Too late.
There's no such thing as being too late, because, she's older, but what does that mean? That there's an expiration date? And that's another thing. Yeah. That's another thing that's really ahead of its time, because I think even now we live in a culture where people think, oh, well, I'm too old to do this, that, and the other, just because maybe they're 50 or pushing 50 or 60 or whatever. And it's we're sort of conditioned to think that way in, like, this kind of youth obsessed market. So it's amazing. 1956, it's incredible to me.
Yeah, and it does make me think, I always say her name wrong. Thelma Schoonmaker.
Oh, Thelma Schoon. Yeah, I think Schoon or Schoonmaker. Yeah, Scorsese's editor, Schoonmaker. Yeah.
Yeah, she met Michael Powell late in his life. And they were married for a decade before he passed?
Yes.
And it was like two things about that. It wasn't too late for love. And they just had their time as they had it.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be by anybody's playbook.
Yeah.
They had their love their way, and it was very fulfilling for her in the end. This movie makes me kind of think about that, how it's like you can't shut yourself off because you think there's a certain game you're supposed to be playing. You have to do your own thing, and that's really what she does. And she does that despite what her father is saying to her too. Like it sits right with her to take care of him. She's doing it her way. She's not going to do what is expected of her then either.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very interesting Crawford thing to me, that she does go against expectations a lot.
Yes. No, I absolutely agree. And I love the irony of her character, because my impression was that we see her, as you said, like businesswoman. She's independent. She's comes across as intuitive and intelligent, but then she falls for this guy, and yes, he's handsome, he's younger, you can understand the physical attraction, but he is. It didn't dawn on me till the third viewing, because I always thought, oh well, we don't see those that he clearly has mental health issues until later. But it dawned on me the third time. I was like, yeah, but he's pretty odd right away. Like he's bothering her at the restaurant when she doesn't want him to sit there, and he's like, okay, well, and he just stands beside the table.
It's creepy.
Yeah, he's a little creepy. He's a little creepy, and right away he says things like, "Oh, I think you're lonely, and I think you're lonely because you're afraid." And he's just sort of like, he's coming on strong. And when they go to the beach, and I forgot that they went to the beach the next day, and she has trouble swimming at a certain point, and then again, it's a little corny, but I think in a way it's because he's like, I don't know what I would do without you. It's like, you just met her.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. But I think even though that is kind of corny, it's interesting that what's appealing to me is that this woman who seems like that, it seems like none of that would work on her, but it does work on her for the reasons that you just described, that it seems as if she hasn't had many relationships. So there is a sort of a emotional inexperience there that you can see. And that's what's so fascinating to me, is our emotional life versus sort of maybe our intelligence, and how those two things can mesh, but emotions can just be so overwhelming. Did any of that sort of stand out to you?
Oh, definitely. Her administrative function is impeccable, right? She's a wonderful businesswoman. She knows how to keep her affairs in order. Yeah. But when love hits, she just doesn't know what to do about it. She doesn't have the experience, and she has written it off. She has closed the door on it.
Yeah.
And well, just like when her client gives her tickets, she has nothing in her mind about him offering to go with her.
Right.
She's like, no, he's just given them to me. Like, of course he wouldn't invite me. Of course he wouldn't. And I mean, this is the rare time that she's playing her age in this era. So many of her films in that era, she's like, oh, she's a girl.
Yes.
And you're just like, oh, this is ridiculous. Especially because she's this good-looking middle-aged woman. Like, we don't need to play this girl stuff. You are like a gorgeous middle-aged lady. Yeah. But here she's actually playing her age, right? And playing this feeling of, well, like I said, like you're supposed to be done. Society is telling you you're supposed to be done.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because, like you said, I know Robert wrote about this in his book, that, because often, even in this period from Mildred Pierce forward, the men that she was with, like Harriet Craig, for example, she was with men who and the actor was actually like 10 years younger, but it was that they never made it part of the story. Whereas in this case, the age difference is a part of it. Which again, it was another interesting, layer and something to explore. Which I thought worked really, really well. And it's interesting to me because I've noticed here we are in 2024, and there must be like 3 or 4 movies this year or coming out about this similar exploration of much younger man with much older women. I'd like Nicole Kidman has a couple. She has got like one or two. Anne Hathaway had one. There was a film Made December last year. Todd Haynes. Right. It's interesting that we're seeing a number of these films this year. It makes me wonder if that's just a coincidence or why. I wonder why we're exploring this. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I've noticed that just in new releases.
I think some of it is just the expiration date on actresses isn't what it used to be. There are women, of a certain age getting work now and significant, important work.
Yes.
Like when you come around to the Oscars every year now, it feels like there's just an embarrassment of riches where I don't know that it always felt that way.
Right.
I do think that has actually improved.
I think so.
Like in a world with, Meryl Streep and Glenn Close and Michelle Pfeiffer still enduring, still as fantastic as ever. I think it has changed things a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. I completely agree. I was curious how you felt about the dynamic with Virginia and Mr. Hansen, who Vera Miles plays Virginia. Did you think that was dealt with a little too simplistically? Like they're just like pure evil. We didn't really get like their side of things. I don't know how you felt about that.
It was a little cartoonish.
I thought so.
I didn't specifically think that, but it didn't sit right with me. And I think that is what it is. They were just pure evil.
Yeah.
And it did not go with the more nuanced relationship happening at the other side. And, you've got these 2 May December relationships too. There was an opportunity there to have an interesting contrast. And they kind of missed it by making them so ridiculously evil and one note and shallow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really care for it. And I love Vera Miles so much. It made me a little sad that she was in that role.
Yeah. Yeah, I did think, because I think Joan Crawford's, would they have that great confrontation on the street, and Millie, she calls her a slut, and I was like, I wonder how they got through the production code at the time, that word. But I thought that was she's sort of again, because she's intuitive, and she says, well, you're doing because they just think he's crazy and he's a big liar and everything. And, she's onto them. She's like, well, you're saying that because you feel so guilty about what you're doing. So I thought it worked that they're sort of passing all the blame on him. Like, oh, well, he's so nuts. But at the same time, like, she was married to him. I mean, like, they're like, like high school sweethearts, I think, or they had been together for a long time. So I thought, how did this come to be that suddenly she came with the father like that? I just thought it was sort of it was used as more of a device to get to to his mental health problem. So it works enough for the rest of the film, but it just feels like you said, almost one-dimensional, cartoonish in a way. They're just pure evil,
Yeah, I zone out during that portion, really, because the other part is so powerful. I just don't have the patience for what they're doing with that. And I agree. That's one thing I really can't stand in a lot of movies is that you're supposed to have been married to this person and then just suddenly it's all gone. Like we've certainly seen relationships go very wrong and it turned to blazing hate.
Yes.
But it never turns into this nothing thing, which is so often what happens. Like there was just never a connection. Right. This is a big romantic comedy trope where like the dude just seems like a loser from the beginning. and you don't understand why this woman is with him. Of course she's going to go with the other guy. Like that kind of thing is just not great. And it really, that trope is what it feels like is happening here, where it's just so empty. Like, why was he ever with her? Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I did think some of the suspenseful moments were done well. Like, for example, she finds out that when Vera Miles comes, because there's this they want him to sign about, they're trying to take this land away from him that he inherited, and they're trying to get him to sign it away. And so, okay, now we've already caught him in a few lies as it is, like, where he was born, and she's discovering that he's been lying after they quickly get married. And now we find out he was married to Vera Miles, character Virginia. And so then he tells her, oh, well, he doesn't say it outright, but he strongly implies that she cheated and he caught her, so then we find out, it's that great Hitchcockian moment where we know more than the characters, because we first find out that it's his father and her together. And then she finds out when she goes to the hotel and sees them swimming. And at this point, we see that Cliff Robertson's character is on his way to meet him and thinking he's alone there. And then she's chasing him to stop him, because now she's putting it together that, clearly this has been leading to his mental health issues. And then he sees them together all over again. I did think that was just like on a suspense. If we're looking at like the sort of suspenseful, we went into like a Hitchcock film all of a sudden, But I did think that was pretty good. I don't know how you felt about that.
Well, that scene where she's running up the stairs, it shows her on every flight.
Yes,
and it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And it hit me later that could have been absurd. But it really does. You do feel the panic of like, no, don't let this be happening. No, oh God,
Yes.
And just the different people reacting to her going up and not understanding what's happening. I love that scene. And you're right. It does get to a different level there for a moment, because we're kind of stuck in melodrama, and then it gets a little like action melodrama or something for a minute.
Yes.
And you feel things changing.
Right.
Like when she's talking to Vera Miles, that's a change, but this is an even bigger change because it's about their relationship in that moment.
Right.
Her processing what's happened to him.
I imagine that's where the autumn leaves comes from. The title, and things changing, transforming, right?
Yes. No, it's a great title for that reason, because you feel it happening, And is it going to die away like leaves from a tree, or are you going to, move through that? And, I wouldn't have blamed her for leaving him.
No, neither would I.
He lied.
Yeah.
And just think about that happening today. I mean, most people be like, oh, honey, leave him.
Yeah.
Reddit forums and everything, get out.
Right.
And I think generally, yes, if somebody lied to you, but it's interesting how they show this complex situation where it actually does make sense.
Yeah.
Like, you could question it at the end. Oh, what is going to happen with him in the future? Is she going to be able to maintain this? You don't just fix this. And maybe that's true.
Yeah.
But I do see a path for them together. Nevertheless, maybe I'm just really optimistic here, but it seems like the bond is there.
I agree, because I think the fact that they spent so much time on that and really put the audience through it in a good way is why you feel like what you just experienced, that it's believable and it's optimistic. I mean, even those moments where I love the fact that he was falling so hard for her, but she's resisting because she's thinking, she's afraid she's going to get hurt. She knows he's much younger. She's insecure. And just those like moments like where she does break it off, and then she goes back to the beach, and no one's there, and it's like this Dutch angle, and she's sitting there, and you feel it in your gut. And I'm sure you've had experiences as I've had where you have such a great time with someone somewhere, and then you return there later alone if the relationship has ended, and it's just like the most gut wrenching feeling. And I just thought I thought that was wonderful. And even later when he's in the hospital and that montage of him getting the electric shock therapy and her pacing in her house, there's this ECU on her eyes as she's all the anxiety and fear, it's like a noir all of a sudden. It's great. There's so many things in this psychologically, as well as sort of playing with different styles. It's strong. It's powerful.
That's a disturbing scene.
Yeah, it is.
He's getting the shock treatment. It hit me really hard, and I thought, what was the reaction to that then? I know that they had explored psychiatry to some degree in that era. I mean, I guess starting in the 40s they did, but how common was that kind of an image, though? I don't know the answer to that, but I wonder how shocking that was to audiences to see him going through that treatment, and how many people knew what that kind of a treatment was like when they saw it. Because it really is very scary.
It is, yeah. Yeah, hard to say. And like we said off the top with the doctor feels, he's saying, oh, it's symptoms of schizophrenia. I think, I don't know. Like, I mean, I do know, like I Google, I don't know a lot about schizophrenia, but they can, they can have delusions and stuff. And we do see that with him where, in the middle of the night, he sort of feels that he's talking to Virginia all of a sudden. And he's like, I'm just here to give you a break. That's such a gut wrenching scene where he starts screaming and then she's cradling him and she says, God help me. The line is something along those lines. I mean, that really choked me up every time I saw it. And so I don't know, but I think now we kind of, even the general public, knows a little bit more, at least, about mental health. And you would think, oh, this is like a PTSD, because that experience of seeing his father with his wife clearly just destroyed him, and now he experienced it a second time for real, right? So that just and that paranoia where he sees them on the street talking, and so he thinks that she's in on it with them, and that scene where he throws the typewriter on her hands, and oh my god, crazy.
I mean, like, why is she not out then, was kind of my thought. I mean, that was a little scary, but that was scary, because he comforted her so much, and I was like, why aren't you just out of there? That would not play today.
No, it wouldn't.
No, but the schizophrenia, because of the vision that he had in the night, I can see that. I mean, like one big advance in treating schizophrenia now is people having dogs that are trained to let a person suffering a delusion that there's not somebody there.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
That they're not seeing somebody. And I thought about that this time around, looking at it, like, oh, I guess this really is, that. Because I kind of was with you, like, I don't know about, these diagnoses and all that.
Yeah.
I remembered feeling that the first time, and I hadn't gotten to that point on my rewatch. But I did remember feeling kind of skeptical of it, because I do, whenever the doctor starts talking, I mean, we're talking psycho, whatever, possessed, I'm like, yeah, sure. Just because everything's changed so much, right?
Exactly.
But I think in this case, it was accurate in a lot of ways.
Yeah. That's what I gathered from it as well. So it would be interesting if this was remade now. If they had the scene with the doctor, what the doctor may say. I did think perhaps it would have been interesting if maybe she did to an extent turn on him. Like, especially after being like a typewriter thrown on your hand, and that was only because she got out of the way. I mean, he would have killed her.
I mean, personally, I would just be out completely.
It might have been, interesting to have, because right away he's like, I'm sorry. And she's like, oh, that's okay. I mean, again, I think she knows that he's suffering, and she knows it's, but still, I mean, the fact that you would be that patient, it just feels like maybe if she had, that's a lot.
And I mean, I've had friends who have gotten to a pretty awful place and lost relationships because of it, and have felt that I can offer support, but that I understand the partner not, even when there wasn't actual abuse, but just that they were not able to provide the proper support within the relationship. So there's that too. So that just all the more makes it this enormous thing she does. And it shows how strong this character is.
Yeah.
That she is so all in on getting him help even and willing to let him go, and the effect of that on her. That she's so sure he's not going to want her at the end.
Yes, I thought that worked beautifully.
Can I be spoilery? Because that final, the way she's just going on and on.
Oh, yeah. She is like a goodbye. She just thinks it's over. Like she just assumes he's not going to want her anymore because, as the doctor said, well, he looked at you as like a mother figure, and because that was lacking in his own life, and so he may now, that. But then again, that could just be the doctor's own bias, thinking, well, how's he going to want you?
Yeah,
it's interesting.
You have to know that about doctors too. That they're human and they have biases, and
exactly,
they might know a lot and they might be able to help you, but they're not always right, and you have to have space for that, which is really interesting.
True.
Yeah, like get a second opinion there, lady.
yeah, exactly. But I could see how what he said would have fed her in security, because you even see, I love on the beach when she puts on the bathing suit and then she's like, oh, why didn't I go on that diet? This thing's like, I love those sort of character traits. And I could understand, someone, he's like half her age. I could understand why she would be concerned about this or get insecure about it.
She's protecting herself too. That whole speech is just her protecting herself.
Exactly.
And she's not going to get him and being devastated. But it's a remarkable speech because you feel exactly what she's feeling, and she does it so well. It's one of those moments where it's like, no, you all don't understand Joan. This is Joan. Like, this is her talent. This is what she was capable of. And, what her all the trauma of her childhood, turning into this fine actress. It's all right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, her performance is incredible, but I think I already said, Cliff Robertson as well. I thought he was phenomenal and I also thought their chemistry was great. And I know he really admired her talent. Like I read, you may have read this, but apparently Aldrich had said to her, he asked her to cry in a scene or like a little bit. And she goes, which eye? And then he was like, which eye? How do you do it out of one eye? But she's such a good actor, right? I mean, it's interesting because some people, I've heard that, some people felt that she was never that great. And I thought, how could you not think she's great? I mean, just her depth is like, and is enormous. I mean, she really commands the screen. Not in a way where she's stealing the scene, but I think that's just her presence and her voice and her, she's very dignified and strong but yet can be very emotional and vulnerable. And I this just like, it's perfect for her, this part. But I thought the two of them together, I thought they were really good. I don't know how you felt about their chemistry.
It didn't work for me for a long time. I mean, partly because of how strange it was starting. It seemed like he was just doing a pickup thing. And even knowing how it goes, it still feels funny. And it really does seem like they're too far apart in who they are and not necessarily just age. But when they really connect, it's a completely different thing. It's like it's like a switch being turned on. And then the love is what matters. And that's, that's like the Thelma and Michael thing where it was like, yes, she was much younger than him, but it was just there. Right. And if they're going to make each other happy, then they should be together. And that's all. That's all that matters. Yeah. Yeah.
No, well said. Well said. I completely agree. I wanted to talk a little bit about this style of the film because the DOP was Charles Lang. And I know we touched on Noir a little bit, and he had done some film noir movies, The Big Heat. He did Sudden Fear with Joan. I know Joan was fond of him. And the film, it's rather dark, often. Like, there's that great sequence. I love it when she goes to the, was it opera, I believe? Or like it was opera, right? Yeah. And she's...
Oh, no, it's a piano. A piano performance.
Piano performance, and I love how suddenly everything around her is black, like, and it's just right in her face is the only light, and then it dissolves into the flashback, just to really show her loneliness, that she's completely alone, even in the sea of people. But even in the scenes where it's like a honeymoon phase, there I was noticing like there are still like there's like a black shadow like right over Cliff Robertson's face every now and then. I took that as maybe they were sort of saying, don't think this is going to be so.
Yeah,
this may seem great, but there's a couple of problems here. But I just thought it had that Aldrich sort of roughness to it, even in the delicate sort of happier moments. I thought it worked well. I don't know how you felt about that.
Well, it's interesting that you should mention Lang, because I really did see her being framed much as she was in Sudden Fear. But just
true,
you feel how he's tuned into her in both of those films, and the way he frames her is so in tune with her emotions, and at the same time caring. It's like if you could show empathy with a camera, you really see it. And I don't know that she's really framed quite that way in anything else. And it was why Sudden Fear became one of my favorite Crawford films, was because of that, was because of the way she was shown.
Yeah.
That her terror, her devastation are shown in such a way. And like you're talking about the recital, that's such an intimate moment.
Yeah.
And we've all been there when you're going to a show, but you've got something else going on and you can't quite escape into it. Like,
yes.
Either you're going into it like that, or something in the presentation evokes a memory and you're just lost in it.
Which is what happens. Yeah.
And you forget that you're not alone at home having these thoughts.
Right.
I thought that was very powerful.
Mm.
And this is something about classic movies, people who tend to be skeptical of them or think that they're maybe not advanced. I'm like, oh no, we were getting to the depths of the soul in these films.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, like there might be elements that didn't date well, but there are things that are eternal. And I think that moment was just an eternal evergreen moment that would translate, across time.
Mm. Well said. Yeah, I completely agree. And I was reading a little bit about the writers, and they were a married couple, Gene and Rouverol and Hugo Butler, and they apparently were blacklisted during HUAC, and they moved to Mexico, and they were selling scripts from Mexico with a front.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So that may be why IMDb has all these names because at the time they couldn't use their name. Right. Really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know about them or what other things they've done. I'm certainly curious now.
The Legend of Lila Claire.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she did that.
Well, that's a camp classic.
I haven't seen that.
It was also in the Bad Movies We Love book.
Oh, was it? Oh God.
It's more over the top. You really couldn't call that traditionally good, but I think it's objectively awesome because it's so entertaining how crazy it is. The dialogue in that.
Okay, I'll have to see it.
There, though. Oh, that is not the same as Autumn Leaves, but I can kind of see where it came from, though.
Okay, well, I'm gonna have to see more of, because some of these scripts I was like, they looked appealing, but I haven't even heard of them. But he had done more. He had worked also on his own. I don't know how often they worked together. I'm just looking at. Oh, he did He Ran All the Way, which is the last film Garfield did. John Garfield. Right. The Prowler. That's another film. Yeah, so he did some film.
That's a fantastic film too.
Yeah, that's another one I still have to see. I haven't seen it. Yeah, he has quite a few credits. But she apparently wrote a memoir about their blacklisting era. So I thought, that would be an interesting book.
Oh, wow. I know nothing about this. Another thing to explore. Isn't it funny that it's this finite period and yet there's endless ways to learn about it and endless stories? Yeah. I mean, you could spend a lifetime and not, get to all of it. I mean, I would love to learn more about these too. But it's interesting that you're talking a married couple doing this movie about these relationships, these different, marriages.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what they're drawing from there. What
It's
their
a good
relationship
question.
was like,
Yeah.
and what their experiences are. That sort
It's
of
a good
thing.
it's a good question. Yeah, I'd love to know. Maybe there's some insight from her book.
Right.
Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention about Autumn Leaves?
Well, I think I didn't appreciate it so much the first time I saw it. The first time I saw it, I was watching a lot of Joan Crawford films. Like I did get it from that book I mentioned, but I watched a lot of other Joan Crawford books, films from that book too. And then I kept going. And interestingly enough, it was the start of me appreciating that period of Joan, because at that point, I had been all about pre-code Joan Crawford. I just loved that working girl, her strength. I thought the period really suited her. And I think I kind of looked down on the mid-century Joan. And I think films like Autumn Leaves, maybe a little bit humoresque, though that comes much earlier. I
love that one. That's a great one.
Yeah, that's a favorite, definitely too. But I think I on another view and time passing, I appreciate this period of Joan a lot more, and it might even be close to being my favorite because of the strength she shows at a time when a lot of women feel disenfranchised and forgotten, and she's here like shouting
good point
that woman's story and doing it really well. And showing herself and her craft mixed together. I think this film is a good example of that.
I completely agree. Because before I read Robert's book, it had occurred to me that I hadn't seen as many films of hers as I thought I did. Like I had seen Mildred Pierce, I had seen Johnny Guitar, I'd seen Humoresque, and a couple of others. Just going through her filmography, I didn't see everything, but I saw a lot. And I was like, this, like everything that you just described, was exactly what I was thinking. Like this period from Mildred Pierce forward is really, really strong. And just playing these independent, strong, intelligent women who also are, really interesting in so many ways. It's great. I mean, she's certainly an actor that people need to explore, whether you're interested in this period or not, but just to see her acting, like she was so raw, and absolutely powerhouse, of an actor.
And I think that Sudden Fear is a good companion to this because it's a completely different story, but it shows the same person, really. And also with a younger man. She's going at a similar, and he has his own problems, though. He wants to kill her, so that would really definitely get out of that relationship. But it's shown in different ways. One is a thriller, and one is a melodrama, and those genres also cross a little bit. So I think it's interesting to compare those two.
Yes.
Not to mention the way she's framed is so similar because of the DOP. So
yeah, that's well, I'll have to have you back on for that one, Sudden Fear, because I've been planning on, I only just saw it for the first time in July. And really, I was like, wow, how have I'd heard about it, of course, but I was like, how have I not seen this till now? But that's great. Yeah.
Someone plotting a movie within a movie is my favorite, as a writer, right? Which we talked about in Repeat Performance too, I just realized. So
that's true. Yeah. There's a pattern.
A mini genre, something like that.
Yeah. Well, if people want to follow you, Kendall, on social media, where's the best place for them to go?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube, and it's all watching classic movies in various ways. I think it's watching _ classic movies on Instagram, and otherwise just watching classic movies together. And I am at watchingclassicmovies.com if you want to make it easy to find all this stuff, because I've got links to everything there, and I update what I'm up to on that site as well.
Great. Fantastic. Well, again, I'll leave the links in the description box below for where you can follow Kendall on social media and subscribe to her YouTube channel and check out her podcast and website. So it'll all be there for you. Kendall, thanks again. This was so great.
Oh, yeah. It's fantastic to be back.
come back again. We'll do it. We'll do Sudden Fear next time, hopefully.
Absolutely. Would love it. Would love it.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/Robert Bellissimo at the movies for full details. Patreon is exclusive content that I create month in and month out. And as a subscriber, you are able to vote on polls and contribute to what I do on Patreon month in and month out. So head over to the link for full details. You can also leave a donation directly to my YouTube channel by pressing the thanks link, which you will find directly below the video frame. Just click on the thanks link and you can leave a donation there if you choose to. And lastly, if this is your first time here, please consider subscribing. It is absolutely free to do so. By pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the movies logo, you will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left. In just a second, just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes. Also click the like button and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this episode. Also, you can also share the episode. All of these things are what produce traction to my YouTube channel. So I appreciate you watching and thank you again. And I will see you in the next episode.